This is part 1 of a 2-part video series. The towns clustered in northwest Georgia may hold a lot of appeal for prospective retirees. In this video, I'll explain why that is, and toward the end, I will compare several of the towns in this region. As you'll see, the region has some drawbacks, but also has some significant advantages for retirees. This is a channel in which subscribers learn about topics like early retirement and geographic arbitrage. If such topics interest you, keep watching, because I think you'll find that Northwest Georgia might present some interesting opportunities to people like us. Let me first point out some things about Georgia, the whole state. In 2021, the state of Georgia made headlines when Bankrate.com rated it as the best U.S. state for retirement. This took me by surprise. I've been visiting Georgia for over 20 years quite regularly, and I had never thought about it as an ideal state for retirement, although it's a great state in many ways. But here's what Bankrate.com had to say about why Georgia as a whole is a great state to consider for retirement. First, the cost of living in the state as a whole is 7% below the U.S. average. Now, if you're at all familiar with Georgia, you know that there is one very large city, and the rest of the state is filled with smaller towns and cities. So when you think about that number, 7% below the U.S. average, you should recognize right away that that number is inflated by the higher cost of living areas surrounding Atlanta. Many parts of Georgia are actually 20% or more below the U.S. average in cost of living. So many parts of Georgia are very affordable. Another interesting detail about Georgia that Bankrate.com pointed out is it's not so far south that it lacks 4 seasons. If you like a little bit of winter, you will experience it in the majority, if not all, of Georgia. In addition, those winters are not so bitterly cold as you experience in a lot of other areas of the United States. So if you just want a little bit of winter and you like the variety in the weather, Georgia might be a place that provides a nice balance for you. As I pointed out, the one large city in Georgia is Atlanta. And of course, the Atlanta airport is a very big airport. In fact, from year to year, it's always somewhere in the top 3 busiest airports in the world. Now, that comes with some significant drawbacks. If you've ever been through the Atlanta airport, maybe you've experienced, like I have, some of the drawbacks. But if you see yourself traveling quite a bit in retirement, it's clear that there are some great advantages in being not terribly far from an airport with as many opportunities as the Atlanta airport presents. Something else that's really nice about Georgia that Bankrate.com points out is there's quite a bit of geographic variety in the state. So up in the northwest corner, you can be in the Blue Ridge Mountains, part of the Appalachian Mountains, and yes, that's how I choose to pronounce it, the Appalachian Mountains. And then over on the southeastern edge of the state, Georgia does have some coastline, so there are some beach areas within the state, and there are beautiful forests, there are bodies of water throughout the state, so there's really quite a bit of variety packed into a state of rather ordinary size. Now, the mountains, of course, are not going to be like the Sawtooth Mountains of Idaho. And the beaches are not going to be like the very finest beaches in Hawaii or Florida. But the beaches, the mountains, the bodies of water, the forests in Georgia are all beautiful. And the way I might describe Georgia is, while the mountains might not be A+ mountains and the beaches might be B+ beaches, when I look across all of the different features Georgia has, and I think about the things that I value, it becomes apparent that everything I value is at a B or higher level. And that strength across so many different things that are important to me could make Georgia an ideal state to retire in. Alright, from this point forward, let's focus specifically on Northwest Georgia. This is a region that is advantageously located. From this corner of Georgia, a drive to Atlanta could take about 2 hours, although if you're not familiar with the Atlanta area, do watch out for its notorious traffic. A drive to Nashville, Tennessee, or Huntsville, Alabama, could also take about 2 hours. What about Northwest Georgia's distance from beaches? Florida beaches around Panama City and Destin are about a 7-hour drive away. South Carolina beaches surrounding Hilton Head and Myrtle Beach are about 8 hours away. And beaches surrounding Savannah, Georgia are only about 6 hours away. This means a resident of Northwest Georgia could take a stroll on a mountain trail in the morning and still have plenty of time to catch a sunset while standing in the Atlantic Ocean that evening. So there are a lot of great things located near Northwest Georgia. While big cities like Atlanta and Nashville would be a couple of hours away by car, Chattanooga, Tennessee, with a population of 182,000, is much closer. Some of the towns in Northwest Georgia, like Rossville, Fort Oglethorpe, and Lookout Mountain, are suburbs of Chattanooga. They're just a 15 to 30 minute drive from downtown Chattanooga. Dalton, Georgia, which is the largest town that I'll be focusing on in this video, it has a population of 30,000, is a 40-minute drive from downtown Chattanooga. Of course, Northwest Georgia is not a region that has really clear boundaries. Some viewers may be surprised that I don't mention Rome, Georgia, or Lafayette, or Cartersville, at least not much in this video. I excluded these towns only because I'm more interested in areas that I consider to be within commuting distance of Chattanooga. But for viewers who may not feel like that's important, and may prefer to be just a little closer to Atlanta, those towns like Rome and Lafayette and Cartersville are certainly worth researching. One of the great things about Northwest Georgia is that it contains a lot of towns that have a very reasonable cost of living. In this data table that's now on display, a few things are clear. One is that there are quite a few towns in Northwest Georgia in which the cost of living is impressively low. What's surprising about towns like Fort Oglethorpe and Rossville is they're just 15 to 30 minutes outside of downtown Chattanooga. And Dalton is farther away. It might be around a 40-minute drive from downtown Chattanooga, but it's another affordable option if you don't feel like you would need to be in Chattanooga quite as often. Now, the other thing that's apparent in the data table is that there is variety. Lookout Mountain, Georgia, and by the way, there is a corresponding Lookout Mountain, Tennessee on the other side of the state line. Lookout Mountain is clearly a place where wealthier people in the Chattanooga area tend to cluster. And so the home values are much higher on Lookout Mountain, and that really drives up the overall cost of living. Now, cost of living can be subjective, so I like to look at median household income as well, just to get some sense of whether the cost of living data that I'm finding online, and I sourced this from bestplaces.net, to decide whether the cost of living data that I'm seeing is dependable. The interesting thing is that when you look at the median household incomes for Lookout Mountain, Fort Oglethorpe, Dalton, and Rossville, it correlates nearly perfectly with the cost of living estimates that were shown previously. Lookout Mountain is a wealthy suburb. Fort Oglethorpe, Rossville, Dalton, those are very affordable places to live for people of average means. Now, of course, there are trade-offs, as there always are with more affordable places to live in the United States, and we'll get into some of those trade-offs later in the video. Now, when considering an area as a retirement destination, I find it helpful to peruse homes within that area. Trulia is so helpful for getting a snapshot of homes in an area. Let me first orient you on this map. So this is the Georgia-Tennessee state line. You can see Chattanooga over here. This is Lookout Mountain right here, and there is a Lookout Mountain, Tennessee, and a Lookout Mountain, Georgia. I'm starting the search with Lookout Mountain, Georgia. Fort Oglethorpe is here, and then Rossville is approximately here. Let's now take a look at the list of homes here for Lookout Mountain. Generally, anything you see that's under $250,000 would just be property, because it's quite rare to find homes that are under $300,000 on Lookout Mountain. $600,000 and above is quite common. Now, I should mention I'm doing this search in the winter of 2021. Many of you in the future will remember that crazy things were happening in the real estate market in 2021, and winter is never the very best time to be looking at homes. But what we see here confirms what we saw before, that Lookout Mountain is a rather expensive place to live in the Chattanooga area. So next, let's look at Rossville, Georgia. In Rossville, of course, there are many more affordable homes, smaller, older, not all of them, but a lot of more affordable options. If a retiree is comfortable with a fixer-upper or a smaller place, Rossville, Georgia may be a good place to look. What about Fort Oglethorpe? More options. They don't look quite as old as some of those that we saw in Rossville. Now, here's some new construction, and I have to say I've been a little bit disappointed that I haven't seen more condominiums and smaller, newer homes like the one here, but there are some of those around. Most of the homes around Rossville and Fort Oglethorpe, though, appear to be older. But there's also variety. What about Dalton, Georgia? Here we see approximately the sort of offerings that we were seeing around Fort Oglethorpe. Certainly some variety, as is typical, but some that are in a more affordable range. So while that was all very quick, I hope it at least gives you a snapshot of what you might be able to find in some towns in Northwest Georgia.
Thanks for watching part 1 of this 2-part video series. You can now click on the link to part 2.